in modern StarCraft, and this is going to be sort of my polemical opinion for the game, and you're welcome to disagree with me, but I think that so many maps are sort of based on this Lost Temple model. You know, Blizzard makes the game, gives it a whole package of maps, a couple hundred maps, and there's really only one of those maps that gave rise, in a sense, to professional, high-level StarCraft. You know, there's only one map in the Blizzard package that anyone would ever play in this sort of game that ever really, and that really sort of profoundly influenced the way maps have been made from then on, and that is Lost Temple. And that model of having a main in sort of an enclosed area, and then a natural immediately outside, usually below a ramp or outside a narrow choke point, and then with a choke point outside the natural, and then some easily accessible third corresponding. Oh, but there's a Zealot recall going in, tons of Zealots being recalled, but there are Firebats out for Boxer, and Firebats with a medic there being supported, doing some damage to the Zealots, but it's not going to be enough. Tons of Zealots recalled in. Wow, this is just absolutely crazy. Boxer's using a dropship to pick up his SCVs to keep them from being killed by the Zealots. Now he's having to pull his SCVs, and there are Zealots all over Boxer's base, and I think those Zealots are speeded up. The Citadel of Attitude's been down for a while. Yeah, so those are speed lots being dropped in, and this is absolutely insane. Boxer's running around with that dropship, another Firebat out, and the Arbiter is back. I think just a cloak. You can't possibly have another recall up, but Garimto doing tons of damage with this Zealot recall. This is just the weirdest thing. That turret is going to drive the Arbiter away, but Boxer is forced to lift off his main command center. And there's still about 8 Zealots just rampaging around in Boxer's base. 4 more Firebats out. They're going to be taken down quickly, but they take out a couple of the... Well, I think they took out a couple of the Zealots. I don't know how Boxer's going to clean this up. He has his factories back there. If he got some Vultures in, he could micro the Vultures against the Zealots, but he's lost one of his... Vultures coming up. I was going to say, though, he's lost one of his comsat stations, so he's going to be a little bit low on detection. He's got 8 Vultures dropped in there now. I'm not sure how he's seeing those Zealots. I think he must be scanning. I just missed it. But, yeah, he's going to micro against those Zealots and eventually clean them out. But Garimto's done a lot of damage. I think despite being down a base from the beginning, he may have gotten himself back into this game. By the way, I apologize for the slightly low video quality of this video. Oh, wow, more Zealots streaming in the front. It's just the quality of the VODs from back then is lower than the quality of some of these more recent VODs, so, you know, that's how it is, like it or lump it. But, lots of Zealots streaming in the front, killing SCVs. They're trying to go after that tank. Boxer's defending very nice. Oh man, microing his SCVs brilliantly, but still the tank goes down. But he has a bunch of Vultures there, so they're going to be able to clean up Zealots. And Garimto going basically pure Zealots. I don't think we've seen a Dragoon from him yet in terms of his ground force. He's got a robotics facility out, so I don't know if that's for observers. He knows that there's a lot of Vultures out, so he needs to be prepared for mines. But, yeah, I don't know, very interesting. Another recall probably about to come in. That Arbiter is just sitting there. So we'll see how this resets. And the Scout still hanging out for Garimto to the north of Boxer's base. Yeah, I was also going to say, I don't know if this game's been cast before, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't. The series from the 2001 OSL I was referring to was cast by Cholera, so if you like this sort of StarCraft, go and check that out on his account. But I don't think this game's ever gotten done in English, so it's very interesting to see. I had no idea what this game was going to be like when I started it, so this is all coming as a surprise to me. But it is odd to think that, you know, just 5 years ago, StarCraft was this different. And another Zealot recall, still pure speed lots just being recalled into Boxer's base. Not even +1 on those, that's sort of the standard supplement to speed lot intensive builds, at least in PvZ that we'd see these days. But I don't think Garimto's put down a forge. A bunch of mines out there, and those mines are going to eat up the Zealots, but Garimto smartly sending in a couple of Zealots first to take the mine hits, and now the rest of his force is heading in. Oh, but there are still a few mines left. Those are going to do a lot of damage to those Zealots, but if they can suck a mine into those SCVs, a very low SCV saturation for Boxer, actually. Boxer only has about 3 or 4 SCVs there to begin with. Now another fire bat out. And Boxer again being forced to lift off his main command center. And Boxer, you can see, very intense. And I'm sure this is stuff that they practice all the time. Then laying down a minefield, you know, Boxer knows exactly what he's doing, knows how to counter this build. And, you know, you do sometimes see when these older players play nowadays, even if they're not in their best form, they sometimes just have these tricks up their sleeve, these weird builds that were sort of old hat to everybody back in 02, but that nobody knows now, and they can sometimes pull off wins this way. I would be shocked to see someone win with the all scouts and arbiters and speedlots build in a modern game, but who knows, it could happen. That arbiter's still out there. Boxer would, I think, be well served by getting some Goliaths out to chase those arbiters off and to give himself a little bit heavier ground presence against those Zealots. But he has about 4 factories out. Meanwhile, Garimto, I think, is still just on one base, and he's mined out that base. Wow, Garimto has mined out his main without taking an expansion, and that too is just something that we would never ever see. I think he dropped something off in the top right. Again, video quality is really low, so I can't tell for sure, but he may be setting up, yeah, okay, he's setting up a hidden expansion in the top left. He may also be setting one up in the top right. He may recall probes in? Is that what those arbiters are going to do? Boxer, meanwhile, sitting there in his natural, seeing that there is no natural. All those probes are mining gas, so they're going to be nicely clumped for a recall. I think he may recall probes. But, yeah, just crazy non-standard game. And here, it is something that the map sort of does give rise to, because there's not much of a choke point around the natural. The naturals aren't very defensible, and the map is so wide that it's really hard to reinforce bases quickly, I would think, against, for instance, Vulture Harass. So maybe it's just so risky to expand that we see players play off one base. And there's some more contemporary maps. I forget what there's a map that was like Ashworld tile set that had a low ground main and a ramp leading up to the natural, where we saw some PvP games in particular, I think, where both players would just exhaust their mains fighting each other with goons and zealots and not take an expansion. And that was fairly recent. I forget what map that was, but Boxer microing some vultures around, gonna go for some harassment here, and one zealot there in the mix, gonna take some mine hits. More than one zealot, a few zealots, I think, but they're being microed down. But that scout is still there, and arbiters chasing off that vulture. So I guess Garimto's going to fend off that harassment. Garimto now does have a second base going down, or does have an expansion going down. I don't know whether he's claimed that top right. I still can't see for sure. Boxer has a couple of dropships out, so he may persist with this drop strategy and still building fire bats too. Biomech mix, I think, is a really interesting sort of build for Terran. That's something I think we might that might still be successful in modern StarCraft, using. Usually, the standard idea now is to base your TVP army around siege tanks and then use Goliaths and vultures with mines basically to screen for the tanks. But it's not. You could also use medics and marines and fire bats to screen for tanks. They get in the way just like vultures and Goliaths do, and in large enough numbers they eat up zealots pretty quickly. So that's something that, you know, I would not be averse to seeing a revival of. Not that I think we're necessarily going to, but more vulture harassment heading in, 2 dropships full. And this is another micro thing, those dropships not heading out of me. 3 dropships and a tank in there too. But wow, still no mobile anti-air for, well, he has Marines, but he's not bringing them. No vulture, or no Goliaths, excuse me, for Boxer.